Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the second webinar in our series on digital literacy in Africa. This series of webinar is part of the programs set down by the TED Fund Committee on Digital Literacy, Productivity, and Emerging Skills. As you recall, we had the first one a few weeks ago, and the report in an ebook format had been sent out to everybody. We have today's, and which will be facilitated by our very own member of the TED Fund Committee on Digital Literacy, Productivity, and Emerging Skills, Professor Francisca Oladipo, who is the Vice Chancellor of Thomas Adewumi University, Oko in Kwara State. She's a professor of computer science and a consultant to so many agencies, both within and outside Nigeria. So I hand you over to Professor Francisca Oladipo, who will be facilitating the whole of the program that will last just about 1 hour from hence. Thank you very much, Professor Oladipo. Please take over now.
Thank you, sir, for the warm welcome and the introduction. Professor Jagede is the chairman of the TED Fund Committee on Digital Literacy, Productivity, and Emerging Skills. I would like to also warmly welcome all our distinguished attendees and those that will be joining us later as we continue the conversation, the global conversation on digital literacy in Africa, facilitated by the TED Fund Committee on Digital Literacy, Productivity, and Emerging Skills. Today, we are privileged to have also to be joining us to give an opening remark, the TED Fund ES, in addition to other distinguished speakers. And we're also privileged to have our keynote speaker, a resident of Rhode Island and a very prominent promoter of digital skills, both in Africa, Europe, and other parts of the world. Nicholas Harber will be giving the keynote. We are happy we have 71 attendees and we're still expecting more. It's going to be within the hour and we are going to be keeping to time. Moving right along, I would like to invite the ES of TED Fund, Architect Sunday T. Echono, to welcome our very distinguished attendees and also give an opening remark. Can the tech let in the ES, please?
Okay. Are we having the ES? Okay. Well, facilitator, ladies and gentlemen, the ES is a bit delayed, so he has directed that we'll go ahead with the webinar while I stand in to read his welcome address. So let me proceed to read the welcome address of the Executive Secretary of the Tertiary Education Fund, Architect Sunday S.T. Echono. Digital technologies today have become more pervasive as the nature of work continues to change unprecedentedly, and skills development to build the workforce of the future is on the high demand globally. So it is at TED Fund. We are aware of the risk of being affected by automation over the next few years, while the world is at the verge of plunging into job crisis due to skills shortage and the global adoption of digital literacy as the language of the 21st century. We are also aware that the continued shift towards digitalization is making digital literacy essential for today's workforce and henceforth. This applies to current workers whose jobs may change or become obsolete, and to graduates of our tertiary institutions who will be entering the workforce soon. Hence, equipping them with a range of digital skills will be critical to ensure a robust talent pipeline to supporting the development of an inclusive economy, not only for Nigeria, but globally. Digital literacy is a global priority and criterion for employment, a new adult basic skill, which when integrated into other skills curricula enable improved and enhanced learning or acquisition of other digital skills. Digital literacy is critical to immediate empowerment of our population to develop skills necessary to solve the conundrum around education, unemployment, low productivity, and economic diversification. And as the language of the 21st century, digital literacy should not be taken for granted or assumed, but be taught, assessed, and amplified to curb further proliferation of training programs with unidentified curricula and to also curb loss of current jobs, as an estimated 65% of Nigeria's current jobs are at risk of being lost in the coming year if immediate automation of Nigeria's human resourcefulness is not in place. Going by these antecedents, and not too comfortable with the current digital literacy index of Nigeria, which is estimated at 14%, there may not be a better time for Nicholas Harber, the chair of Global Digital Literacy Council, who has kindly accepted to be the keynote speaker, to dissect how best to embark on the journey to solve the issues surrounding digital skills development so that the assertion around it may be once and for all put to rest, not only in Nigeria, but in Africa and the world. We want, by this and other engagements in succession, ensure that Nigerian tertiary education curricula remain relevant, responsive to industry needs, and equipped to produce graduates with the right skill sets. And we will continue to partner with stakeholders across the globe to provide for Nigeria real-world exposure, bridging the gap between theory and practice. TED Fund will stop at nothing to create a pool of knowledgeable and skilled human resources that will facilitate technology acquisition, assimilation, and diffusion with enhanced productivity to support global digital economy. As we commence another conversation today on digital literacy as an issue of urgent importance and to be guided on the journey to appropriately equip Nigerians with tools and skill sets to break through limitations of geography and resources, TED Fund is delighted with the first outing, which recorded more than 265 attendees, and also the registration of today, which has exceeded 1,200 attendees. I thank you all and wish you a happy deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you most sincerely, our esteemed yes. We are most proud of the TED Fund and the committee, the TED Fund Committee on Digital Literacy, Productivity, and Emerging Skills for pioneering this initiative. And we also welcome the support of several other stakeholders. We have many more attendees who have joined us. We have our professors and researchers and colleagues from different institutions across Africa, Nigeria, and the rest of the world. We, in addition to the opening remark and the welcome remark by our ES, we have a number of goodwill messages from some of our distinguished attendees and invitees. I would like to call on the tech team to kindly bring in the Honorable Minister, Federal Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Mama, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, needs to, or his representative, should be promoted to panelist. Mr. Olusegun Awolowo, the Executive Secretary of the National Action Committee on African Continental Free Trade Area, also needs to be promoted as well. Dr. Tunde Agdekola from the World Bank. The tech team should kindly scan the attendees list for these people and bring them up. Yes, are we doing that? While we wait for the tech team to bring in the goodwill messages, people to give the goodwill messages, we want to welcome the attendees again. I'm just going through the introduction to also welcome Dr. Awoyemi Akinade from Federal University of Technology, Akure, and then to also recognize the presence of Dr. Lara Ogushola from NIEPA, Nigeria, Ondo State. Dr. Ayodeji Makinde is the Director ICT, Edo State University, Uzaire. We welcome you. We have seen so much interest, the wave of interest generated by this global conversation on digital literacy. And we're so proud that our country has taken up this initiative promoted by the TED Fund to be at the forefront of this conversation and to continue to promote this interest across several sectors. But we've also seen how much the tertiary institutions have supported and adopted this roadmap with us, as can be seen from the caliber of attendees at today's webinar. We have Professor Chinasa Okori from the Michael Okpara University of Agriculture, Umudike, Mr. Charity Hanson from the University of Calabar, Professor Ignatius Joseph from Delta State University, Dr. Angela, our very own Dr. Angela Ebele Opala from the National Open University of Nigeria, our very own librarian. We're proud to welcome all of you to today's conversation. While we wait for the tech team to bring in the goodwill.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Do we have anyone now?
Yeah, may I suggest that we just call them. If anybody is around, they can just unmute and make a presentation rather than waiting for the tech to promote them to panelists. So I'm sure
they will not be able to speak until this is a webinar, sir.
If they unmute or we unmute them.
Unless you unmute, they won't be able to speak, their attendees.
Yeah, we can unmute them from here, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have Jande from Certiports USA who says, digital literacy is key to a successful Nigeria. We agree completely. And that is why we're promoting this global conversation, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa.
Is it?
All right.
May I suggest a facilitator, yes, because of time, could we go on with the keynote speech, and then thereafter, once we have all this up ready, they can now have their good messages.
Thank you, sir. I was going to say that as well. Yeah. That would be a good time to bring in our keynote speaker. Yes, Nicholas Harber, you're here. I am proud to introduce Nicholas Harber, who is an educator, a global digital literacy advocate, and of course, a director of STEM and certification. Nicholas is an experienced executive, entrepreneur, and community leader whose business success has been based substantially in the setting of standards and the measuring of digital and entrepreneurial skill. Nicholas and his brother, Jonathan, the founder of Skill Check Incorporated, which is an online skill assessment company that started by measuring people's abilities with Microsoft Office. And the initiative grew to create a library of over 800 knowledge, skills, and ability tests in a dozen languages. Nicholas' company, Skills Check Reach, included building the initial exams for the ECDL that were first implemented in the European Union Commission offices in Brussels. And it went on to become the standard screening tool for Manpower International. Nicholas and his team at Skill Check used this experience they had gained from employers under the European Union initiative to further improve on the model. And they went ahead to create the IC3 Digital Literacy Certification Project. The Global Digital Literacy Council was established to provide the global input from multiple stakeholders to have the IC3 Digital Literacy Certification truly become a global program. We're really proud to be a part of this initiative because some of the conversations from this series of webinars will further go in as input to improve the performance of the tool created by Nicholas and his team. The IC3 exams have since been delivered in over 120 countries. He is a proud resident of Providence, Rhode Island, United States. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished attendees, join me in welcoming Nicholas as our keynote speaker for the second edition of the TEDFund webinar on digital literacy in Africa. Nicholas.
Thank you so much for that very warm welcome, Professor Francisco Oladipo. It's great to be here. I really am happy to have this privilege of speaking with you. Would it be possible for me to share my screen so that I can show some slides?
Yeah, you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, right now it's showing that I'm disabled from screen sharing.
Okay, Tech, please could you promote Nicholas? Let me see if I can do it from my end to be able to.
Yes, you have it right.
Right.
Okay. It still says I'm unable to share my screen.
Allow to record. Yeah, the host should be able to do that. Yeah, you're a co-host now.
You cannot do it.
There we go. Okay, great. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, clearly.
Great. So let's start. Thank you for that warm welcome. It's great to be here, and it's great to meet with you and to talk about the work we've done with the Global Digital Literacy Council. And today we're going to talk about bridging the skills gap and how that starts with digital literacy. I want to start out, there was a great introduction. I don't think I need to say more about myself. It's about, a little about 5:30 a.m. where I am in Providence, Rhode Island. It's great to join you and start this day together. Today I'm going to talk about what is the digital skills gap, what is digital literacy, why certify on digital literacy, and I want to talk about that in a Nigerian context. It was just a few years ago, I had the opportunity and the privilege to meet the Executive Secretary, Architect Sunday Achono, when I was visiting Abuja. This was in February of 2020, really the month before the pandemic closed down the globe and changed our worlds forever. And so I'm hoping I get a chance to come back to Nigeria and visit with all of you. It'll be an honor to do so. The Global Digital Literacy Council develops the actionable and measurable standards that are used to create the IC3 digital literacy certification. It is truly the only global certification on digital literacy. What is the digital skills gap? Now, while so many people have been talking about the fourth industrial revolution, we've suddenly jumped into the fifth revolution. The fourth revolution was all about the move from physical into digital, being data-driven and being able to take advantage of these changes. The fifth is now, it's about collaborating with machines to form a human-centered world that drives improvements in lives and global sustainability. Being able to work digitally is now the starting point for industry. And those who are able to jump in the stream where we are now can take advantage of the benefits of Industry 5.0 and don't have to worry about the past. But the speed of technology doesn't mean that we should ignore history. In fact, we can learn a lot from the transitions between industrial revolutions. This is a photo of Slater Mill, the first industrial mill in America. It's just 4 miles from where I live in Rhode Island, about an hour south of Boston. Now, America and Nigeria have much in common. We were both able to win freedom from the British, and our people have tremendous entrepreneurial drive. This water-driven mill was built just after the American Revolution, when it was illegal to export blueprints for mills outside of Britain. So one man named Sam Slater memorized the workings of the mills, and on his boat ride to America, he drafted the blueprints for this mill and created it when he arrived. Having a cotton mill closer to the farms where cotton was sourced allowed Americans to capture the value of what they were creating. And soon, industrial mills grew across the area, driving economic growth and prosperity. I invite anybody on this call, if you want to visit me here in Rhode Island, I'll take you to the Slater Mill. It's now a museum, but it's in still working order. It's really an amazing place. What we've seen, and what we want to think about is, that Sam Slater was one individual that was able to make a huge difference in America early on our lives, and drive prosperity for so many people. And I'm wondering who on this call could be the next Sam Slater, and who would be the Sam Slater for Nigeria. When we look at the jobs that are being formed around Industry 5.0, the jobs are going to be eliminating repetitive tasks. And jobs are going to be more about collaboration with machines. We're looking at robot herders and data miners are the jobs of the now and the future. The whole nature of work is going to change. Work's going to become more project-based and agile. The gig economy is going to expand. Workers are going to see much more flexibility. Then work is going to be more hybrid and online and people-centric. This gentleman, K.O. Bencourt of SAP, a really large tech company, said the future of work is timeless and placeless. It's supported by solid engagement between the technology and the worker, where technology serves the people, replaces repetitive tasks, opening spaces for creativity and development within people-centric activities that support individuals' well-being. And we're going to see how that works out. When you look at Manpower, the global employer, and you look at some of the reports from last year, we look and the talent gap is growing, and it's growing significantly. And it's right now it's at a 17-year high. Near 77% of employers are saying they're having difficulty finding the skilled talent they need. And what are the in-demand jobs around technology? Of the companies that measured, 27% are having trouble finding workers in IT and data. And then you see the other 5 here: engineering, sales and marketing, operations and logistics, customer-facing front office. And how are companies addressing this skills gap? When they look at it, 71% are looking at upskilling their own workforce, but over half of them are plan on filling new permanent roles. 37% of them are going to be bringing in, over a third of them will be bringing in contract workers or temporary workers to fill this role. These are opportunities for people to get these jobs when they have the skills. Um, how are they addressing it? How are they inviting, widening their net to get people to be able to take these jobs? 57% of companies are offering more flexibility about when they take these jobs, flexible hours, part-time jobs, and where. You can work out of the office. You can work remotely. These are opportunities that are happening. And this has really been driven by the pandemic. When the pandemic hit and everybody was forced to be at home, people worked at home. And now that the pandemic is over, people are generally not coming back to work at the same level that they did. Office attendance is still 30% lower than it was pre-pandemic, even though the pandemic has been announced over for more than a year. So remote work is not going away. And when you look at what's happening with work, this chart shows who's coming to work 5 days a week. And the larger the company is, when you look at this, these are 25,000 employee companies on the far end. The average number of days that an employee works in the office for everybody in a professional services or information technology, they're working less than half the days there. So there's certainly going to be people that are working full 5 days in the office, and there are people that are working fully remote. In fact, the company that employs me, Certiport, a Pearson company, we've gone fully remote at this point. So all of our employees are working remotely. There is this creates remote work varies by industry, but larger firms tend to allow for more remote work than smaller ones because they've built the infrastructure to better manage remote workers. And this is shown in where people are living. So before the pandemic, people were flocking to the major cities around the world to find employment. And since then, there's been a net migration away from cities because people can still work where they've been employed and they can live wherever they want. So we've seen massive changes in where people are living. The logical conclusion companies are growing, are used to having remote talent. And they'll quickly realize that it doesn't matter where the talent resides as long as they have the talent. So where to start, where to take advantage of this disruption and this opportunity that's caused by the industrial revolution and remote work? How do we take advantage of that? Well, it all starts with IC3. IC3 is the core certification that can lead to many other skilled digital work. So let's talk about what is digital literacy. Digital literacy is the foundation for employability in today's digital economy and the remote workforce. The Global Digital Literacy Council has done the research to determine what should be in the IC3 certification. And the result of this effort is a new program model that engages learners at 3 different points in their digital literacy development. The IC3 Global Standard 6 is designed to support learning by certifying 7 key competencies at 3 separate levels. Things like cloud computing are incorporated throughout the standard, especially in content creation and collaboration competencies. Mobile computing has become a huge part of our daily lives, and it's the environment in which digital citizenship and communication take place. Personal safety, online safety, and device security are particularly important areas of concern for parents, educators, and employers. I want to emphasize that the IC3 digital literacy program is what we call product agnostic. All the competencies assessed in the standard are universal and can be used across various platforms. For example, word processing skills can be used in Microsoft Word, Google Docs, and Apple Pages. We're going to talk a little bit about each of these key areas. When you look at technology basics, this is really, what do you need to know to be able to use your devices? How can you troubleshoot and resolve technical problems? Are you familiar with foundation level software concepts? Can you run your device from a remote location? That's covered in technology basics. How can you be a digital citizen? Digital citizenship is critical. How do you manage your digital identity? Some people call this their digital footprint. I prefer to call it your digital tattoo. When you say something online, it's there forever. How to talk about your digital etiquette, how to understand how to work with others, how to prevent cyberbullying. That's all contained in digital citizenship. Information management. This starts with the storage and retrieval of information. And I think about IC3 through the ages when we had to cover many different ways of storing information. Right now we're in Global Standard 6. Global Standard 3 covered, you had to understand how to use floppy disks. Global Standard 4 talked about CDs, and in Global Standard 5, we introduced cloud storage. Information management also covers areas around media literacy and how to identify the information that you're getting from your source is accurate. I think about a recent story when I was invited by the U.S. Department of Labor in May to present a workshop on digital literacy as a workforce skill at the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation meetings in Detroit. There was a keynote speech by the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Charles Liu. And he started his speech. It was a pretty good speech talking about workforce skills and about, and he included a quote from Henry Ford, the great industrial leader from Detroit. And he said that it is better to train people and have them leave than to not train them and have them stay. And this was a quote I'd heard before, but I didn't know that it had been said by Henry Ford. So I was curious about that. And then the ambassador did something really interesting. He stopped and he admitted that the entire speech he'd been reading up until that point had been written by ChatGPT. And so that was a great demonstration about how work is changing and how things like artificial intelligence can change even the job of a UN ambassador. But for me, someone who's obsessed with information management, accurate information, I saw that, since that had been written by ChatGPT, I was pretty sure that the quote from Henry Ford was not accurate. So I started searching online to see what the source was. And I found a couple sources that attributed the quote to Henry Ford. But they were from small sources, blog posts. They were questionable accuracy. The Henry Ford Museum, which is a very reputable place, had a list of quotes from Henry Ford, and it said, these are the ones we know he actually said. And if it's not here, we don't know if he said it. And the quote from the ambassador about training was not on there. And so I found that as proof that Henry Ford had not said that quote. Now, the interesting thing is several weeks later, I redid that search online, and the search engine I looked attributed the quote of Henry Ford, and attributed that quote to Henry Ford and used as a reference the ambassador, U.S. ambassador, using that quote at the Asia Pacific cooperation meetings in Detroit. And that's just a really good example to show how the internet really works. It's what I call a daisy chain of navel gazing. It referenced, the thought of the internet, the search engine, quoting the ambassador who was using ChatGPT that is driven by the Bing search engine as a circular reference. These are the things that people need to be aware of, how the internet works, how to understand when information is relevant, so that when they get information that's important, they can make sure that it's truthful and it's not disinformation. A quote about Henry Ford is not that important, but there's a lot. The growth of disinformation on the internet is going to become more and more, and we need to have people that understand information management, and that's something that we teach in IC3. The next area we cover is content creation. Creating, editing, publishing, presenting original digital media content, focusing on accessibility issues, understanding intellectual property. And, in the AI age, we need to understand that AI doesn't create new things. It rehashes old things when it's directed by humans. So this is, content creation is certainly going to be updated by AI, but it's still going to be driven by people. Communication. Here we are all on Zoom, talking on many different parts of the world together. We need to know how to use these tools. Everybody, and especially if you're going to be working remotely in a tech environment. So the technology of communications, understanding the different types of communications. Email is different from Slack or Teams chats, which is different from communications calls. What does that mean? How do you use these different tools culturally? How does this mean? The meaning and use of these tools are different within different communities, different corporate cultures. So understanding those things is part of what we teach in IC3. Of course, there's collaboration, and there's been so many updated methods for collaboration digitally. We can all work on the same documents at the same time. But we also talk about how to resolve issues working collaboratively. This is critically important as we move into Industry 5.0. And then, of course, safety and security. Keeping your device secure and keeping your body and your mind healthy. When you can understand how the internet works, how social media works, you can resolve some mind and health issues. So that's what's covered in IC3. That's what the global digital literacy has determined is important. And I want to talk a little bit about why to certify on digital literacy. So when we created it, we know, and Nigeria knows that standards are important. The recent this year launch of the National Digital Literacy Framework this summer was really exciting. And the IC3 has been mapped to the UNESCO and the EU Digicomp and the Nigerian framework. And when you look at it, when we map to it, we take each competency area and we are able to show the direct mapping to the standards that have been built by these third bodies. The difference of what we do with the IC3 certification is we're focusing on the outcomes. We're focusing on, can we measure these things? Can we help a learner demonstrate that they've achieved these skills so that they can get hired by an employer? Because measurement is critical. And if you're not measuring what's important, then whatever is measurable becomes important. So if you're focusing on having the proper outcomes and you're using a measurement that is trusted throughout the world, then you're going to be in a better place. One of the core key things about where I live in Providence, Rhode Island, is the first surveyor and this, I think the architect, Sunday Achona, would get a kick out of this story. The architect that surveyed all of Providence had a broken ruler. So all of the measurements for all of the property in Providence is off slightly. And that makes it much more difficult to build things in Providence. And one of the reasons why we don't have as many structures as nearby cities like Boston. So when you're thinking about measurement, is your measuring stick, is it universal? Is it accurate? Is it consistent? And is it trusted by the people that you're going to be sharing the outcomes with? When you look at the IC3 program, it's been endorsed around by organizations around the world. The United States, you can get college credit for it. It's aligned to the ISTE standards. It's aligned to the EU DigComp standards. And to many of these other institutions and ministries of education, ministries of labor around the world. If you go to our website, certiport.com/IC3, you can see a number of these endorsements and alignments. And so when you're using the IC3 program, you know you've got a trusted measuring stick. And we've seen this turn directly into success for the organizations that implement it. One example is the government of Belgium. You know, many years ago, Belgium needed to upskill its government workers, but they found that providing training programs were ineffective. People were taking those classes and they were not gaining the skills they needed. A lot of workers just treated it as a week of vacation. So they needed to do something different. And so by establishing the certification as a final milestone and offering to the government workers rewards for achieving certification, we drove the outcomes for the government much faster and at a higher level. People had an incentive to demonstrate that they learned what they needed to learn. There was not one prescribed way to do it. They just said, this is the outcome you want. If you're certified, you will get a bonus in your paycheck. And we had tens of thousands of government workers go through this process in just a few weeks. It was a way to drive fast success. If you set the goalposts for people and tell them specifically what they need to do, and you're satisfied with those outcomes, you will see results. Another really interesting success story that we've seen recently is in the country of Thailand. Thailand was also interested in improving their post-secondary educational institutions and deregulated the requirements to start new institutions. And so suddenly dozens of new higher educational institutions popped up all across the country, which is a good thing. But a lot of students were concerned about going to a school where it was uncertain if they would get a good education or not because it was so new. And so the institutions started using international certifications like IC3 as a way to demonstrate to their incoming students that the education they're getting is high quality and would allow them to get a job either in Thailand or elsewhere. So is Nigeria going to be the next great global success story? I really look forward to bearing witness to that. And Nigeria is open for business. Nigerians are incredibly entrepreneurial. There's a young population that's willing to learn. And so I recommend, if you are announcing to the world that you're open for business and that you have people available to hire, industry recognized, globally accepted certifications are the best way to demonstrate your candidates are ready. So to summarize, Industry 5.0 is creating new opportunities. The digital skills gap drives demand for workers globally, and remote working is going to be opening the door for everyone. And it all starts with IC3 digital literacy. Thank you. I'd be happy to take some questions now.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. That was a very excellent presentation, and I'm sure our distinguished participants are itching to take you on that offer of questions. We appreciate taking your time to identify the digital literacy gap and how the world suddenly leaped from talking about Industry 4.0 to 5.0, and everyone seemed to be caught unawares. But then we also appreciate the work of the IC3 in identifying this early and then putting programs in place to offer different levels of certification, all the way from the foundation to safety and security. And of course, I can say with confidence and with the support of the TED Fund that Nigeria is going to be on the list of global successful case studies very, very soon. I can say that with all confidence. While the keynote was going on, we had the honor of having our Executive Secretary of the TED Fund join us, Architect Sunday S.T. Echono. Yes, sir, we would like to just have you say a few words to our distinguished participants, and then, of course, to our keynote speaker. And to unmute the ES. And of course, the Acting Executive Secretary of the National Universities Commission, Mr. Chris Mayaki, is in the house, represented by Engineer Dr. Kayode Odedina. I would like to request the tech team to please promote Engineer Dr. Kayode Odedina to a panelist to give the goodwill message of the ES. We'll wait for our ES to unmute, and we can open the floor to questions from the attendees. If attendees have questions, can I please have your hands up so we take that in the order? We have time for about 3 questions. Could you rename yourself ITEL A662L? We need to identify you by a name and not by your device.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we hear you clearly, sir.
I want to sincerely apologize. I had to attend another state function because, as you know, the business of government. But I also know that we have international audience with us, and I want to appreciate Professor Jegede for assembling this very rich repertoire of experts and people interested basically in changing the landscape for IT development in our country in its various facets and forms. I would like to reassure all the participants that TED Fund is committed through its ICT roadmap to improve infrastructure as well as create a network, an assemblage, or a platform for all our students and the academia to access the best facilities, the best content, and also to share knowledge across the globe with a view to improving and uplifting the standard of education in our country. More importantly, we are committed to innovation, to develop the creative talents of our students, to help them to be able to compete with their peers all across the globe, and to also raise the bar for our academic institutions so that it can improve their ranking, as well as improve their offerings and relevance to our society. There has been specific, I'm aware that this particular engagement today is intended to further explore opportunities of how leveraging on ICT and modern technology, particularly artificial intelligence, the use of data and informatics, new areas and breakthroughs in terms of innovation can be explored. And I hope that we all will contribute to see how collectively we can share this knowledge, we can share these resources, and we can also help to stimulate across the length and breadth of our countries, and also indeed across the globe, a reimagining of what education should be like within the knowledge economy, and what role we can play as the incubators of knowledge, of ideas, of creative talents, and we can hone the right skills to ensure that we make the world a better place. We guarantee security, we guarantee food security itself, and we also have shared prosperity for all. So I thank you all for joining, and I hope you will have a very good experience in the course of these interactions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Idea. Yes, we are happy that you're able to take time out of your busy schedule at this time to join us and to also welcome the attendees from everywhere, all over Nigeria, Africa, and the rest of the world. Moving on to the questions, I have a question in the Q&A. Nicholas, are you ready? From Professor Christine Ofulue. She says, many thanks for an insightful presentation. I am pleased to see the IC3 is mapped to UNESCO and the EU DigiCorp standards. However, is there room for contextualization of the digital skills required?
Great question. So when we build the global standard, we really are looking to build the exams to be a measurement that can be trusted globally. But how you teach those skills, we recommend that those skills are taught in the context that your learners will understand. So there are many different ways to learn the content, and a contextualized way to learn the content is recommended. At the end, though, to have that certification, be able to demonstrate that you've reached the global standard, you will be taking an IC3 exam. That's the same exam if it's delivered in Lagos or in Berlin or in New York City or in Tokyo. And so there is a global standard outcome and certification. But in my experience, teaching that content in a contextualized method is the best way to go.
Thank you so very much. While we wait to take on the next question, Dr. Kayode Odedina have asked you to unmute to give the goodwill message of the Acting Executive Secretary of the National Universities Commission.
Good morning, all.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much. I join my voice to the voices of others to congratulate the TED Fund and Professor Jegede for this outing, which is the second in the series. At the National Universities Commission, we are aware the roles of that digital literacy will play in the 21st century education and behavior generally. So we are glad to be part of this movement. We've been working with Professor Jegede especially for quite some time, and indeed with CETIPOD and the Digital Literacy Council. We know that as today, if you are an engineer and you are not Autodesk certified, then you are not a global engineer. If you are an accountant and you are not Intuit QuickBooks certified, you are not a global accountant. So we are aware of all this, and we are very glad to be part of this movement. So I congratulate everybody that has had time or created time to attend this webinar. We hope that as we move along, we will achieve a great deal for Nigeria and Nigeria's educational system. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, our dear Yes, for that goodwill message. I'm going to be harvesting some more questions from the chat, but I'd like to invite to give his goodwill message the president of the Nigeria-Russia Friendship and Cultural Association, Mr. Kumi Akinade. Could the host please unmute him to speak? while that technical aspect is going on, Mr. Aki Ola Johnson has a question. I am trying to, allow you to talk. Mr. Aki Ola Johnson, please. You need to unmute to ask your question.
Yeah, good afternoon, madam. Can you please hear me?
Yes, we hear you clearly, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to make this meeting a global event. Please, I want our keynote speaker to shed more light on the convergence between digital literacy and artificial intelligence. If there's any area of convergence, I want him to shed more light on that. If there is none, let him bring out the distinctive divergence that the two of them have and how the nation can benefit. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's a great question. AI is been around since the 1950s, so we're hearing a lot about it now, but we've been expecting it for a long time. And what artificial intelligence is doing is it's accelerating so many of the things that we've been seeing already. And I use the example of the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations using it to write his own speech, and how it accelerated the use of of disinformation, right, or misinformation in that case. And so all of the skills that we've been teaching around digital literacy, about media literacy, about information management, collaboration, communication, those are core skills that are going to help learners navigate the world now that AI is advancing and pushing us into Industry 5.0. But it's, I think there's often, when a new technology comes on board, there's initial, people think it's the most wonderful thing in the world, and then there's a quick backlash and people say it's going to destroy the world, and they're very scared about it. And in the end, it's something, this new technology is something that makes our world a bit better than it was before. But as long as the people that are using it are knowledgeable about it and skilled in using it. So we're focusing on
constructed to 4, 5, and 6 Nigerian languages.
Oh, really? Okay.
Apologies, please. I had to interrupt. Thank you so much, Nicholas. I'm going to take one more question from the chat. Before that, I want to say that part of what the team at TEDFund, and of course the committee, should look into as part of digital literacy is how to use technologies like this. Now we have the webinar chats, we have the Q&A. People are posting their questions into the Q&A instead of into the webinar chat instead of the Q&A. So I'm taking this from Dr. Josiah Wolabi, Faculty of Education, the National Open University of Nigeria. And he says, you now have the IC3 Global Standard 6. What is your advice to those who already have the Global Standard 5 certificate?
So, of course, my friends that run in sales would say you should take the IC36. But the reality is it depends, and it depends on the learner. If that's a learner that's gone on and has been able to take additional certifications and advance in their digital skills, they've gotten what they need out of the IC3 program. They've advanced, and they should focus on their next learning and their next upskilling. There are a lot of changes between GS5 and GS6, the Global Standard 5 and Global Standard 6. And so we recommend that for the learners that need to get into the digital skilling and are introducing themselves to digital skills, that they now start with the most recent version, IC3 Global Standard 6.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. There is a question. What is the full meaning of IC3? Ladeji James would like to know.
So it's the IC3 stands for the Internet and Computing Core Certification. And we changed it just to the acronym, I think around version 3. There's been so many changes with the program. We used to have modules that were on computing fundamentals, key applications, and living online. And up until GS5, when we were building GS5, we realized just about everything is living online. And so we had to revisit the model and updated that for Global Standard 6.
Thank you so much. We have some questions that relate specifically to Nigeria. And generally, it's all about what will the TED Fund be doing to actually bridge the digital gap between schools, and then talking about economic situation. Professor Jegede, perhaps you'd like to answer that. Nicholas has spoken to us about the global standard, but bringing it back home, what would your committee be doing to actually bridge the gap locally between different schools? For example, between Abuja and, let's say, Okoirese, the village where I am, there is a very huge gap between the people and the schools. What will you be doing locally?
Yes, thank you very much, facilitator. The TED Fund Committee on Digital Literacy, Productivity, and Emerging Skills has this on its own agenda. The committee was inaugurated a few months ago, and we're working through that. But TED Fund is working through the various regulatory bodies in higher education, i.e. NUC, NBTE, and NCCE. And so they will, at the second level, reach out to the various institutions, the schools, and very soon we'll be adding on the National Senior Secondary Education Commission, so that everybody will be on board, and we'll be talking about the curriculum, we'll be talking about the certification, and to kickstart all this will be the baseline assessment that we have to do in all the institutions, starting at the zonal level. So yes, it's on the map, it's on the radar, and it's going to happen very soon. I need to say, a few people seem to be concerned about where is the infrastructure, where is all that. The first thing is to say, let's be positive. We cannot wait if we have to wait till all the infrastructure is set, then we'll be left at the bus stop. So we need to make a start with what we have. And Nigeria has got a lot. The most important is the human resources. And we have a crop of thousands and thousands of people in this area that are ready. And we have millions of learners all over, whether the higher institution or the secondary schools, that are ready to be on board. So I think that's what we need to do. And we are definitely ready. So I want to assure the person who has a question that in due course, he will see when we begin to roll out all the answers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Jageda. You've actually answered question asked by about 4 people, and it sums about the Nigerian situation. There's a general question on whether the recording of the presentation will be shared. You're going to be getting a whole lot more than just recording. You're going to be getting a whole package about the work of the committee and then every other initiative that are connected to it. I don't know if Mr. Akiade is still ready to give his keynote, but while the tech people are bringing him in, I would like to give
Yes, he's there. Is there? Friendship House is there.
Hello, good morning, listeners. First, I want to congratulate TED Fund for moving in the right direction in the third decade of the 21st century, whereas many nations have actually turned this to a 21st century project. Having said that, digital skills, like all skills, is precision skills. And we are now confronted with the reality that without digital skills, there is practically few things one can do these days with the penetration of ICT. And basically, every average Nigerian, irrespective of status, location, rural area, there now every product and services are served in digital format, majority of services. So the imperative of digital skills cannot be overemphasized. However, this TED Fund initiative is quite welcoming, and it actually fits into the global direction in terms of migration. Now we have skills gap, labor gap in many developing countries, Japan, Russia, Germany. They're looking for skills, but they're looking for precision skills. It will actually impact on migration. It will change the landscape of migration from illegal migration to legal migration. It will impact on global wealth distribution. So I think there couldn't be any better time. So I congratulate organizers. The association which I represent seems to be on the same page, which is the Nigeria-Russia Friendship and Cultural Association. You're talking about friendship, you're talking about culture, you're talking about education, people-to-people contact, and wealth creation. So I'm happy to be part of this initiative. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
Thank you
Where are we?
for that beautiful goodwill message. We're going to be rounding up shortly, and we'll take a couple of announcements. The first one is that we shall be sending out the evaluations to all the registered attendees to provide suggestions and valuable insight on how we can improve on the organization of future editions of this webinar. And we hope to have the next edition early in the new year, immediately after the festivities of Christmas and the New Year. Traditionally, as it is done, we're going to be having a group photograph, a virtual digital group photograph. So I'm going to request for all attendees to kindly turn on the videos so the tech team can take the group photograph. And like I said, attendees are going to be getting a whole package that includes not just the recording, but also the attendance, an album of the attendance. So if you want your face, your lovely faces, to be featured in the album of attendees, kindly turn on your camera, put on a smiling face like I will do, and they'll take the snapshot. Dr. Nino, has that been done? Oh, they said can't turn.
We're working on it. Just hold on. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Let me see if something I can do from here.
All right.
Okay, have you captured it? The videos, the only things available now are just if you're open.
Why are we not getting everybody?
Okay.
That's the setting of the admin. The host can actually turn on. Yeah. Let me see. Now, if they check the meeting setting under the security setting, they should be able to.
Yeah, some people's camera and responding from what they're saying. But I think they're gradually going on. Okay. All right. Oh. So the setting of the meeting is restricted. I don't think it is. Why?
Yeah, because it's a webinar, but the host should be able to, at the end, to do a reset of the meeting to allow everyone to turn off their cameras. There are 134 of us right now, and we really want to see everyone's face. So the host needs to go to video setting to allow attendees to turn on their cameras. Right. Are we there? Okay.
Not yet.
Mm. Yes, that's been done now.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mr. Peji.
Please, from my end, I'm not seeing any icon to click on. Usually, you will see an icon for the video, for the camera to turn on. I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah, that has been done. You're going to see that shortly.
It's all right. Thank you so much.
We're still waiting to get it.
We are only unmuted, but the camera is not yet out.
My camera is not yet out.
Exactly. No
I don't
camera.
like the background.
Yeah, the camera is not yet out too.
Thank you. No
Go to the work.
They're working on it, but if his camera is not on, it could be your network. Yeah, because other cameras are on. So
It's not mine. It's still not on, but
My camera too is not available.
The camera is not available.
Not on.
Can we all stop talking at the same time?
Is this on?
Okay. Let's continue to talk.
Okay, let's get Odo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, any more questions?
Are there any more questions from our distinguished
Okay.
participants?
My video is on now.
Prepare to come up.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, we're working on it. I've also joined the tech team.
I'm joined.
And the questions in the.
Are you set?
Hi.
Are you set?
Hello.
Okay.
On the screen.
Hello.
My video is not enabled yet.
Has it been enabled?
My video is not enabled.
If your video is not enabled, you will see the message. Join as panelists.
Thank you.
When you join as panelists, the video will come on.
Okay.
Please let us tell it again.
That is digital literacy.
Join us.
It looks like what we are doing now is
what
we are doing now is an indication that all of us need to be digitally literate.
Yes.
Well, I am not seeing anything.
Hello, can you hear me?
I'm not seeing anything on my end.
I'm not seeing anything.
Hello.
Again.
Yeah, I am
on
I can see myself.
I can't see myself. Please.
Could you please resend the message?
There is no video.
Could you please resend the message? The options to
Hello.
join as
Join
panelists.
as panelists.
Okay.
And you see yourself.
Finally on.
Kindly resend the
Please
message.
send it again. Please, can you send the message, please?
Hello.
Professor Jagede, please.
Hello.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello, I can't see myself up to now.
Turn on your camera. Turn on Turn on your video. Yes.
I can't see video.
Yeah, for the video is not coming up here.
My video is on. My video is on.
The icon for my video is not on. Okay.
Exactly.
My video is
If your icon is not on, try that channel. Panelist.
My video is on, but it's saying unable to access camera. My video icon is still not on. It's saying unable to access camera.
Yes, that's a problem with your own device.
Join as panelist.
I did.
Professor Ladipo, please.
I did join as panelist.
Yes.
My video
You probably want to mute
Submitted,
everyone. This is not about your faces and your whatever. Oh. Okay, yeah, I was saying that this is not about your faces and all this crowded, noisy environment, which is totally anti the purpose for us here. I have critical questions and comments for Nicholas and Professor Jegede. Comment that will help his committee, because when he mentioned the stakeholders, I noted that there's a need to also liaise with NERDC. I have not woke up at my hand past 4 a.m. not to be able to contribute. Okay. The guest speaker is in Rhode Island. I'm in Maryland. We're in the same time. So please let us learn. The issue of my face, my this is not that critical to us learning and investing the benefit of this extra customer service on the part of Nicholas and the team, but more importantly, on our part as scholars and teachers. So please kindly address that issue. For Nicholas, I was critical about the fact that he has validated that STEM will not survive without the H, that is the humanities generally, as well as the social sciences. So the idea of STEM in Nigeria, without understanding the nexus between STEM and humanities, will not take us anywhere. And he just mentioned it. He started with a storyline. He started with that guy because of the gag order from England that had to plug in. Oh, let me show my face.
Yes, Professor Tijani.
That factory that he showed us. You talk about pandemic and post-pandemic, the workplace. I mentioned the issue of ILO, decent work, even if you work for yourself, employability. And there are institutions, tertiary institutions in Nigeria that are also contributing immensely. This issue of virtual presentation, we started at NOUN. People don't give credit for National Open University of Nigeria. Under COVID, we blazed the trail. Just like NOUN having the first Center of Excellence in Nigeria funded by TEDFund. Is it because it's a distance learning? So we need to go back and retool our knowledge and understand our space for us to be able to develop skills, certification in digital literacy. I thank you very much. And my friend is right there beside Baba, Jagede. And I think he's smiling now because he bombarded me with all this webinar. And despite my travelings, I have to just join at past 4 a.m. today. And that is why I am, in another few hours, I will be having a live stream on the Trans-Africa convocation taking place at Morgan, for which I'm the coordinator. I thank you for listening. I may have made some sense, but we need more critical roundtable discussion about this critical issue in this particular age of Nigeria. And I thank you very much for organizing this. Thanks to TEDFund for being there critically, both human and physical intervention, the best that is in Africa. And a lot of African countries are trying to copy. such intervention. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Hakim Tijani. I don't know if Professor Jegede and Nicholas would like to briefly respond to him before we close the session. It's been an exciting one, but we really have to go.
Oh, thank you. I'll just quickly say, Professor Tijani, I really appreciate your questions. And since we're both on the East Coast of the U.S., I invite, let's find a way to get together, and maybe we can meet even at Slater Mill in Rhode Island, and share experiences. I would welcome that.
Well, thank you for the extension of invitation. Thank you.
Thank you very so much. Professor Jegede, do we have any last words from you before we close the room? And Dr. Niro Oyekale? All right, then. It's been an exciting 1.5 hours, and I want to thank our esteemed participants for joining us. Without you, we wouldn't be having a webinar. And to also especially thank you, Nicholas, and everyone who have joined from the East and West coasts, from other parts of Africa and everywhere else, to thank you for the exciting. Yes, Prof, you want to say something? One last word?
No, I was just going to say that Nicholas has addressed all the issues, and he said my mind very loud and clear. And we will work together. In fact, I'm planning to meet with him first week in January, somewhere in the US, so that where it's going to be warmer, not cold. I don't want a cold environment, if it's possible. And then we'll work out a lot of other things. Yes, thanks. I think we're fine, facilitator. Thanks.
I look forward to that. Thank you.
January is not the best time to be in Rhode Island, sir.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. You should look for somewhere warm. Maybe we should meet in Florida. We should meet in Florida or Texas or California.
Yeah, or California.
Yes.
I think Florida would be nice. So you do a lot of working and walking on the beach.
Yeah.
I'll be taking the shots.
Right.
Thank you so much, distinguished participants, and we look forward to welcoming you to the next edition of this webinar on the global conversation on digital literacy in Africa, facilitated by TEDFund through the Committee on Digital Literacy, Productivity, and Emerging Skills. Enjoy the rest of your day. And to Nicholas, Professor Akim, and the rest of the people from the US, do you want to go back to bed, or now you want to continue the conversation? Bye-bye.
Do we have the vote of thanks? We need a vote of thanks on this side.
Yeah. Oh, Engineer Joseph Odo.
Yes.
I'd like to invite you to please join us in thanking our participants. There's so much talking.
The facilitator, I have the directive of Mr. Joseph Odo on his behalf give the vote of thanks. So on behalf of the Okay. So I have the authority of Mr. Joseph Odo to, on his behalf, give this vote of thanks. My name is Dr. Nira Oyekale. I'm a member of the TEDFund Advisory Committee on digital literacy, productivity, and emerging skills as an expert or consultant on emerging skills development. So here I go. On behalf of the Executive Secretary, the Chairman and members of the committee on the TEDFund Committee on digital literacy, productivity, and emerging skills, express our gratitude to the participants. And as the ES earlier stated, that collaboration is it. So we believe at the committee that we will want to continue, or we continue to collaborate with stakeholders across the globe to ensure that the best is achieved and Nigeria becomes the next success story of a globally digitalized country across the globe. By doing this, we'll be able to reposition the education system and Nigeria will be able to live up to expectation in areas that includes legal migration, so that our graduates will now be graduating with skills relevant to the workforces across the globe. Let us be reminded that 2025 is around the corner, where there may be a serious job crisis. So all of us must be readily available to support this initiative, so that by the turn of 2025, we all look back and say we've done well to put this great country among the solution providers to the world. So again, I want to say thank you, and wishing you the best of the day, as we look forward to an announcement sooner on the date and the keynote speaker that will be bringing on board to do justice to this global conversation. And most importantly, on short notice, our facilitator assumed the role of taking charge of the entire session. So thank you, madam. We wish we come over to Oko one of these weekends.
You're welcome.
Not only to discuss digital literacy, to see how you are doing and see how we can actually make Oko, the Thomas Adewumi University, a sign of all eyes and an epitome of what a digitally literate institution should be. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Niro. Thank you to our distinguished participants and our keynote speaker, and of course to our executive secretaries, both that of TED Fund and that of the NUC, and to the other distinguished invitees who had given us goodwill messages. On that note, we'll be happy to close the webinar, and like everyone else, I'm excited and I look forward to seeing everyone again at the next edition of the webinar. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you, well, Prof. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Was the photo taken?
Bye, everyone.